was all two-lane roads. I was running low on gas. I did not see any gas stations from about off of Route 8, the main drag there, and west of Waterbury until I got up to didn't even see one. We had to ask, hey, where's the nearest gas station? When we finally got up there to Sharon, it was like a couple miles down the road. But that was a nice drive, absolutely nice drive, and it was good to get out. I've been doing a lot of work, and I needed a break from that the little shed project. I'm gonna work on that. I don't know if I told you, I got I put up some extended 2x4s. I took 2x12 12-foot 2x4s and extended the pitch of the roof all the way down to ground level, so I can put a 4x7 panel, which is the cut size of the big roofing panel. Is going to form the majority of the roof on either side of the shed. I can lay it on like that inclined plane there, and I put a block and tackle on a gin pole above the ridge beam, and I can just I made like a rope harness, out to the outer edges of the panel, and just clip onto that and haul away, and up it goes. I did a test lift Wednesday, I guess, and that worked quite nicely. And then probably tomorrow. Today I got to do. I'm going to do maybe the final lawn mow of the year, just to clean up the lawn, and all the Japanese maples are coming down now. But after this, I'll probably just be raking them. I'm going to do that. It's a good day to do it. Everything's nice and dry. We got a good amount of rain, and everything is nice and green as far as the grass and everything again. So that's good. Let me get it over to Steve. K2XAM, good morning. AJ1G.
Hey, good morning there, Chris and Kevin. And boy, you were at K2XAM. You were in my sort of my old stomping grounds. I grew up in northwestern Connecticut, right there in Pleasant Valley, a little town called Pleasant Valley. And I brought people down from Vermont, friends of mine, over the decades. I've been here since '87. And I explained to them, I said, you're going to see things that rival anything you'll see here in Vermont. It is a beautiful, beautiful area. Of course, I was big into fly fishing, so Trout Unlimited got in there on the Farmington River, and they cleaned that whole area up a long time ago. And it's one of the premier trout fisheries in the entire world. It's spectacular, and you drive down through the valley from Riverton to Pleasant Valley, and they have a state park there, and it's all these massive, massive pine trees which line the river. And you got these, I wouldn't call them mountains, but hills that come up steep, very steep, up off the valley floor there. And it's only about a 5-mile strip. It's awesome. It's just such, and the old homestead is right there. I just lost my aunt almost a year ago now, last December. And we ended up selling that homestead. It was right there on West River Road, right, 10 houses up from the center of Pleasant Valley. Such a neat area. Anyways, yeah, sounds like a good trip. You had a good time. Kevin, yeah, I heard you guys talking about the snow. I heard that about Pennsylvania. It's crazy. The mountains here are just snow-capped. I think the elevation level was maybe 2,500 feet, something like that. Everything above there was snow-capped, is snow-capped now, but we got mostly rain yesterday. So, there was something else, Kevin, you mentioned, but I haven't been in here long. I'll put it over to you. K2XAM, good morning from K2XAM.
All right, good morning, Steve, and good morning again, Chris. Yeah, so the local thermometer here is saying 38, and it's kind of cloudy. I guess we're getting close to sunrise, which I think is sometime after 7, maybe between 7 and 7:10. And sounds like a nice area, Steve.
Coffee went right down the wrong
gosh,
freaking tube.
well,
What an idiot.
Yesterday was an interesting day as far as travel. It was cloudy primarily the whole way, but occasionally it would start raining. And, of course,
Such an idiot.
it would have to rain about the time you were getting out of your car to walk into something, to walk into the Walmart. It just is what it is. And I thought I had a couple umbrellas, but evidently those didn't make it over to the new car. So I'm going to have to look for those in the pile of stuff that I took out of the Jeep, which is now 2 or 3 months ago. and get that stuff piled up into the car so that I have it for future road trips and so forth. And let's see. I was trying to figure out what town this guy Dennis lives in, but getting on QRZ here, he said he had 14 inches of snow, and the power was out as well for most of the day from 5 in the morning until something like 7 at night. But he had a generator. He's got a big Generac generator that's on an automatic transfer and all of that stuff. Let's see. Little Meadows, Pennsylvania is where Dennis lives. So it's below Apple Lake in New York. I know he's described it. Up in the mountains below Binghamton. So Binghamton got about 6 inches. He ended up getting about 14 inches. He had just put up a 160 meter antenna. Gosh, probably in the last month and a half. And he did it the right way with weights and pulleys and all of that stuff, which my antenna is not done here. But he was so nervous that thing was going to end up coming down. And I guess there was enough sloppy snow on it, wet snow, to end up dragging the thing down towards the ground up to where the weights are. And fortunately it didn't snap. And he said, everything as far as the antenna goes ended up melting off, I guess, during the course of the day on Saturday, that he was able to get in with us. And he said everything tuned up right. That there was no shenanigans with trying to tune and so forth. The joys of winter. But yeah, here in Syracuse, we really ended up getting very lucky. And Eddie Fix-It, the Fry guy, called me on Friday, and he said up in Cicero they didn't get any snow. It was just all rain. And here it was primarily rain. And even when I was up at 4 in the morning to make a bathroom run, it was still all rain, and it was sometime between 4 and 6 then that the slushy wet snow ended up showing up. Anyways, on over to Chris, AJ1G, K2XAM in the group.
Yeah, okay, Kevin. Okay, Steve. And boy, beautiful signals. I was just looking at your QRZ page, Steve, and so you have a lot of Audio Technica stuff. Maybe you can help me find out the information on this microphone. I cannot find. This is an Audio Technica Alpha 500 Super Cardioid. I've been using it for many years. I got 2 of them. I picked them up for the princely sum of $4 at Nearfest many years ago. I got one of them with my computers up in the family room, and then I got this one I use down here. This is kind of my go-to microphone over the years. I got a couple of Sures here, but I like this one the best. But I've gone on Audio Technica's website, and I cannot find any information on this particular mic. I found one similar, but not. They have a very extensive history of all of their products. You can look up on their website, as you're probably aware. I cannot find any information on this particular model number of microphonium. And where is Danby? I suppose I could just look on QRZ on the maps and look, but I'm not sure if I know where Danby, Vermont is. And yeah, that area in Connecticut is beautiful. Yeah, you mentioned the trout fishing on the Farmington River. You're right. That is a great river. They've really cleaned it up, and it's. There was even a video earlier this year. Box 61 out of Hartford. They did a segment on the news one morning of they were doing a trout census. It was a conservation group, might have even been Trout Unlimited.
Doing well there, buddy.
They had a whole bunch of people with I think they were putting up like barrier nets across the river, all waders and stuff, and then dip nets, and they were counting and tagging trout. It looked like a lot of fun, and beautiful river there. Yeah, I don't fly fish. Never have gotten into that. I'm a surf caster. I do a lot of surf casting, but not as much as I want. And in fact, yesterday this guy Kevin and I was, that was selling the oyster shells. Turns out he's a big fisherman. He was like a world-class freshwater bass fisherman at one time. He's a young guy. Turned out he also went to URI, got a degree in they have like a fishery science degree program down there. If you want to go into commercial fishing, it's a pretty cool major. I don't know how many states have that, if any. And he's been doing aquaculture and things like that. Has connections down this way with guys running oyster farms, and knows a lot of actually he knows there's some pretty popular younger guys that do surf casting and saltwater fishing video series, and he knows those guys. He went to school with a couple of them. Anyhow, where am I going here? I guess actually I got to go up to 38, 35 for the AM carrier net and the pre-net, and I definitely got to shut down because Joe, my neighbor, N1VIV down the block, 5 houses away, he's net control, and I'll be anytime I'm transmitting, especially on this band, when he's trying to run that net, I blank his receiver right out. So I'll catch you guys. I'll listen out. I guess it goes again over to Steve, and I'll listen out and catch you guys maybe tomorrow morning. K1GMM, K2XAM, AJ1G.
Okay, Chris, really quick, what is that microphone you're referring to? It was an Audio-Technica Alpha 500 something?
Yeah, that's it. I'll read the label off it here. Let me see. It's Alpha, spelled out Alpha, dash 500. Supercardioid dynamic. And, it's black with a golf ball type grill on it.
Okay. Yeah, I took a quick poke. Boy, I couldn't even find it, dude. Supercardioid dynamic. So I put it on my notes here. I'll take a poke around in there. The only thing I'll say is Audio-Technica, they're kind of a bizarre company because a lot of the microphones from a ham radio transceiver standpoint, a lot of them some of them work really well. Some of them, it's kind of like every manufacturer. Some are really good for these applications. Some are questionable. But there's some old ones. There's some oldies but goodies. I haven't heard of that one yet. And I did take a quick poke on Google. Man, it didn't even pop up. So I have no idea. The one microphone that I absolutely adore, I've had that thing 30 years or more. It's the AT25 or ATM25, I think it's called. It's technically a kick drum mic. But for those of us that have a low voice, that thing is an absolute monster. And it is used for vocals, but it has zero internal damping. So you've got to really work hard to get it isolated. If you put it on a desk, on a stand on a desk, and you breathe on that desk, it's going to crack everything open. It's really not very good, but holy crap, that thing is insane, that microphone. It's one of the best microphones I've ever heard. Smokes, it wasn't a cheap microphone. And you can still get them, believe it or not. You have to get them from Japan, but they've been discontinued for a long time. and they thought about bringing out an anniversary edition. It's like one of those hidden gems. Nobody even really knows about it, you know. I used it as a kick drum mic and a floor tom mic. I know, right? But it's a beastly thing. It's not very big, but yeah, it's a weapon. So I'll do some poking around on that Alpha 500, see if I can get some information for you. Well, have a good day. I'll let you talk. Any quick comment? I know you got to get out of here. AJ1G, K2XAM, then I'll stick it over to Kevin.
Yeah, okay, very good. Yeah, I'm just reading off it's black, you know, it's a handheld vocal mic. It had some sort of other sticker on it below that, which is worn off on the actual barrel of the microphone. It also says hypercardioid, low Z, and then it also says high HI-energy, high-energy on it too. But it's very lightweight. You know, it kind of looks like a Shure PGA PGA 40 or something like that. But like I said, I got a pair of them in a actual case to hold a pair of them for the princely sum of $4. You know, it seems to be it seems to work okay, and it seems to have a fairly balanced spectral output. A lot of the Shure like, well, actually, I've got the Shure Spherodyne. It's a high Z satin stainless finish Spherodyne. That was my first ham microphone. I bought it from the kid across the street who was using it as a vocal mic in a band he had. I forget if I bought it or traded it or what, but still have that. It's hardly spherical anymore. The head on it is the grill on it is all bashed up from being dropped millions of times. But it still works. But I got a PGA 50, is that right? PGA 40, a couple of those floating around here too. But that's the limit of my. I'm not into super, collection of microphoniums here. I did have had an Elvis mic. I forget which one. It might have been an Electro Voice. I gave it to a guy I knew at work who was he played. He's a harp player. You know, he plays harmonica. You know, he's a blues harmonica player, and he really liked it, and it worked out good for him. Anyhow, I'm going to get going here. I got to shut down because Joe will be firing up any time now. Over to you, Kevin. K2XAM, AJ1G.
All right, Chris, good morning to you, and have a fine day, and let the carrier net folks know that I said hi. If any of them besides George and you even remember who I am, it's been a while since I've checked into that, maybe a month or two. And real good on the mic. There's probably some literature somewhere out there on it. You never know. It could have been one of those units that maybe they only ran one run of and decided, we got something else like it. Let's just do one run of these, and maybe they only made, 1,000 of them or something like that. And it's one of those rarities. Nothing great here. Just a Shure, the good old Shure SM58. I've got two of those that I've owned for years, and they were bought. I actually bought them. At one point, I was involved with a church startup, and the church startup didn't last very long. I think we were able to go 4 or 5 months, and then the guy who was the pastor dude ended up getting very sick. He was coming over from the Boston area of Massachusetts over to the Schenectady area, and once he ended up getting pretty sick, he stopped coming, and we kind of gave up that whole idea. So I ended up taking my my microphones and my little compressor and my PA amp and all of that stuff, and just brought it home. So this thing's been kicking around easily for gosh, my kid's 28 now. Yeah, so probably about that time, 26, 27 years. This stuff has been kicking around. But I hung on to the mics. I think everything else ended up getting sold off over the years. What else? Not much else. Just happy that we don't have a truckload of snow here. And I guess it's supposed to rain some more today, but that's easy to deal with. We don't have to shovel it. That's a good thing. Let's see, Steve, back on over to you. As I sit here and wait for the weather forecast to come on here, hopefully in another next 5 minutes. K1GMM, K2XAM.
Okay, leave a little break there. You cracked me up when you were talking about your Jeep, dude. If I looked in the back of your Jeep, would I think you were living out of it?
No. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. There was a lot of extraneous stuff.
Say hi to Mom.
In there. So, in going through the boxes of stuff looking for something else last week that ended up coming out of that, I did find those Daniel Plan videos we talked about yesterday, because I used to lead that group up until about July, and then we just kind of fell apart during the summer, and then by fall, all the church groups start back up, and one of the girls had called me and said, hey, are we going to get back together here? And like, I don't know. So I called one of the other girls, and she's like, I don't want to bother doing this. And I'm like, yeah, me neither. So I go talk to your other friend there, see if she's still going to show up. And so we didn't. But so, I inherited a bunch of junk from my dad's, including a couple of smaller umbrellas. And I don't know, when the transfer ended up going over, the first thing that got transferred into the new vehicle was the audio processor. And I was kind of disappointed that there was not an aux-in jack. So I ended up putting a little FM transmitter in there that I had built back in the 90s. And gosh, every vehicle I've had for at least the last 10, 15 years has had some form of way to get an aux in. So that's, been out. I had to go digging in the garage for that thing. Then I bought this stupid Bluetooth thing that you're supposed to be able to transmit. And I don't know what frequencies Bluetooth works on, but it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. And it's the second one. The first one I bought at Target didn't work more often than it did work, and that ended up going back within about 2 weeks of getting it. I ended up finding this other thing on Mono Price. So, I have to have basic stuff. I have a lot of my music, or all of my music is in iPod, and the iPod computer kind of ran out of space. So I haven't added any new music. So when I want new music, I've gone back to recording stuff on mini disc, and I'll just bring a mini disc player with a mini disc, or a couple of mini discs and so forth. And that stuff ends up getting run through. But there was all this other extraneous stuff. It's not bad. We actually had to take stuff out of the Jeep before we went over to
How you doing, buddy?
Albany yesterday. I said to my son, I said, hey, while I'm running around here trying to grab bottled water and stuff, I said, go out and open the back of the Toyota up and grab whatever's there. There's probably a couple bins that have been there.
And Peter.
Getting carted down to Pennsylvania for the last 3 weeks.
At your point, I think, right?
And so there was a couple of those back there, and there was a spool of West Penn wire that I had brought and some program amps for their console and stuff like that. And it's like, let's get that stuff out of here so we don't have to listen to it rattle all the way over. And he goes, well, we're going to have to listen to stuff rattle on the way back. I said, yeah, if we bought stuff, that's good. The weather forecast is on now, so I'm going to shut up for a second and pay attention. So if you can give me about 30 seconds to pay attention to this goofball. K1GMM, K2XAM.
Oh, yeah, do your thing. No problem. I'll be in here just sitting. I am streaming this morning. I was kind of hoping the big crew was going to get in here, but I don't know what's going on. So let me shut up. Go ahead and listen. And I got a question for you, K2XAM, when you come back. Oh man, you're near Bar Harbor there. Boy, my wife and I used to go out to Acadia every year when we first met, all the way through the first several years when we were married. This is back in the early 90s. One of my favorite areas. Beautiful, just beautiful out there. Yeah, it's pretty much same here weather-wise. It's fugly. It's been raining. It's not raining now. Mountains are snow-capped above, I think, maybe 2,500 feet, something like that. So it's coming. It's coming. It's a little late. Oftentimes mountains are snow-capped here.
All right, I have returned. One thing I noticed here when none of us were talking, which is usually me,
around
the band is pretty quiet this morning. I have like an S5 noise level. And that's quiet for right here. Anyway, go ahead and pick it back up. K1GMM, K2XAM.
So what's the scoop? What did they say for your area? I know it's supposed to get cold. I think we're looking at a cold blast from what I saw coming up the end of this week, maybe in the next weekend or something.
Yeah, I didn't look that far ahead. I just looked at basically today and tomorrow. So they're talking about another, trace to an inch of snow possible. So that means there'll be enough to stick in the lawn again,
Oh yeah. Yeah. You mentioned 160, you're on 160, and you told me what you were running there yesterday. And I've thought about this, but yeah, I don't know how well it would work. And you did mention something where somebody was using I don't know if it's a loading coil or something on an antenna. And I thought you mentioned it didn't work that well. I've thought about that, is putting a loading coil, switch-in loading coil remotely here from the shack on the 80-meter loop. Now, saying that, I kind of think back to, I used to, you're going to laugh, but I used to run a Serio Turbo 5000, which I still have. It's basically an 11-meter 5/8 wave, electrically 5/8 wave whip. It uses a base loading coil in there. And I built a 80-meter loading coil, which just had a 239 in the top of it, made out of 2-inch PVC, and I used to actually talk on nets mobile with that, and the whip's only 6.5 feet long. I wasn't strong, but it actually worked. So that's why I was thinking, I wonder if I could stick like a loading coil. I'd have to play with it, see if I can get it resonant, get that antenna resonant. What's the likelihood that I'd end up setting it on fire? I don't know. And I wonder if it would actually work. It would probably hear great, but I don't think it would have too much teeth because it's half as long as it should be. So, I was thinking kind of all day about what you said there, and it's something I've thought of off and on to try it. Now, I did, you're going to laugh, which was really stupid to do. I loaded that 80-meter loop. It's a monobander. It is not a multibander. So it's matched for this area of this band up to about 38, 38.8, 38.9 is the kill box. So I actually loaded it up and I transmitted. And they said, "Yeah, you're not very strong, but it's working." And I wasn't going to push that much power. I think I only pushed about 400 watts. So, yeah, I don't know. Give me your thoughts on that, because you know more about that stuff than I do, like what guys run on 80 meters or 160, I should say. You know, and you know, anybody running like a pretty compromised antenna on 160, and is it worth it? And don't be, you know, just give me your opinions and what you hear. K2XAM, K1GMM.
K1GMM, K2XAM. So I am probably the worst person to ask about anything with antennas, because antennas, to me, I just don't understand them. I've worked on transmitters my whole entire life, and you know, at mostly small market radio stations that had no money, and you know, you use what you got to get them back on the air, and hopefully they let you buy the right parts and stuff like that after you get them back on the air. So antennas to me are kind of a mystery. The people that you really want to talk to about antennas is going to be Jamie or Tim. I mean, and there's probably others that are out there. You know, Steve QIX has had a lot of experience, I think, with both antennas and with he's built his own Class E transmitter. So there are many more people that are knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable than I am. So there was a guy, Bill, who has been a silent key for at least a decade, lived up in Glens Falls, kind of had a mean, nasty personality. Of course, I think he got to drinking while he was on the air, and, you know, he might have started out okay, but the more he drank, the meaner he got. But he was kind of friends with Jamie, and he lived in a postage stamp size lot, more or less like myself, maybe even more so, and could only get 80 meters worth of wire put up. And Jamie built him, I think, a big link-coupled tuner that he was able to get the transmitter to load up into. However, being that there wasn't enough wire in the air, he really had a compromised signal with it, but he could get on 160 with it and not set anything on fire, fortunately. If you look up do a Google search of antenna tuner on dryer, the keyword being dryer, or maybe electric dryer, you know, that picture of that is up somewhere on the internet. Antenna tuner on dryer. So that photo of that may be up there. The other thing is, when Jamie builds stuff, he kind of does stuff way overkill. So that may have been why that antenna tuner, you know, somewhat worked out for this guy, Bill. But as far as antennas go, you know, Jamie gave me a hard time last week. He goes, "I can't believe it." He goes, "We threw some wire in the air up at your house," and I can't remember where he saw me. I think it was across the pond. He was looking at some web SDR when I was on 160 a couple Saturday nights ago. And he goes, "I can't believe it. I could see your signal and almost hear your audio." He goes, "I could hear just enough of it to know the tones of your voice and know that it was you." And he goes, "I've never been able to see my signal on 160 meters across the pond." And it's like, "Hey, man, you're the one that helped me throw this pile of wire." He goes, "You just have a pile of wire in the air." And so, you know, I have a somewhat inverted V here. And, you know, one end of it goes out towards the road to a tree that was out there, and then at a little bit of an angle off to another tree from the center point. And it really is all just thrown up in a tree. The center the center of it is just actually thrown up over a ton of branches, and they're not big branches. A ton of branches, and each end then goes to those two trees. And we had to take some length off of it. I think I cut the wire originally to be 260 feet overall length, and because we ran out of yard, we figured out that the overall length was 244 feet, and it works, and it works pretty well on 160, which is amazing. I mean, because I really don't know what I'm doing with this ham radio stuff. It just, I don't know. Antennas are one of those interesting things that I need to learn a little bit more about, and just haven't. And maybe if I ever get around to retiring, I possibly will. Who knows? K1GMM, K2XAM.
That's funny, dude, because I got a story for you, and you probably know this person. I ran into him this night. Remember I said that I jumped on 160 and I loaded up that 80-meter loop when I shouldn't have. And it was a nice crew. It was maybe that frequency, right around that frequency you're talking about. I was on sideband. I wasn't on AM. And this was years ago. I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe. They said, "What are you running?" I said, yeah. I told them, I said, I got to be careful because it's a monobander and she's pissed. Had a huge amount of reflected power. It just was not happy. Of course, right? So I didn't want to blow anything up or burn anything up. So one of the guys popped in there and he says, throw up any piece of wire you can. I'm paraphrasing, of course. He told me what he was running, dude. I just sat here with my jaw on the floor. He said, yeah, I got a 160-meter dipole. It starts off something like 6 feet off the ground, goes straight up into a tree, and then goes out and across to another tree, and then it comes back across again in a zigzag to another tree, and something like back across to another tree, and then the end of that wire, the other leg hangs down to like, I don't know how many feet off the ground. I mean, talk about a discombobulated mess, dude. He had the strongest signal of any of the guys on there. It was absolutely killing it. The point I'm making is, and you have a lot of purists out there, they'll say, oh, that ain't going to work. Well, that's bullcrap. I believe that there are certain rules that can be broken. Some cannot, absolutely cannot. But oftentimes you can break the rules and end up with something that works really well. Now, maybe it was a great path between me and him. I don't know. I don't know the distance. I don't know the angle of the dangle, the radiation, how it's coming off that antenna to me. But I'm telling you right now, Kevin, he was smoking it in here. I love antennas, and that's the reason I got in the hobby. And I met a lot of guys that break the rules, and I'm telling you, they throw out freaking amazing signals. So you can get so wrapped up in the theory, and anytime you have, this is my belief, anytime you applied theory, which forces you not to try something, well, that quite possibly could be a huge mistake. You see where I'm going? You should try it, because you never know. K2XAM, K1GMM.
So the whole thing I think that is important is electrical length. So I think for 160 meters, there's this website called West Mountain Radio, and I think they sell some electronic equipment, but that's a website when I was first putting up my antenna. When I first got on 5 years ago, I ended up looking at, because it helps you calculate out the electrical length and all of that stuff. And then, afterwards talking to Timmy goes, look, don't worry about electrical length so much. Just put up as much wire as you can possibly put up, because on 80 meters, you'll end up with a little bit of gain. So I'm actually using that 244 foot antenna, the 160 meter antenna here on 80. So, you get a little bit of gain out of that. And I don't know what the gain ratio is, but hey, anytime you can get gain for free, what the heck? It's a good day. So I think the electrical length is primarily the big deal, and I could see where that guy's antenna would work. The issue I have with it is the one end being only 6 feet off the ground. If he was using that for a receive antenna, he may have a lot of electrical noise just being picked up, being that close to the ground, and that's almost from I'll use the word almost my own experience. My friend Eddie Fixit, he has an antenna, and he had an 80 meter antenna that you could reach out and hold one end of. It was probably, 6 feet off the ground or, something close to that. I could reach up and hang on to it. And he had, some real electrical noise problems, but there was other electrical noise problems too, in that, there was a bad insulator on a telephone pole that our power company really wanted nothing to do with. And he was the luckiest guy this summer because this tractor trailer ended up coming through and ended up taking out like telephone poles for like almost a mile. And that was one of the telephone poles. And he heard this big bang. I was actually on the phone with him. And it's like, Ed, what was that big bang? He goes, I don't know, man. It sounded electrical. And he started wandering around and walking up the street. And he goes, oh, this tractor trailer carrying like half a house, one of those prefab houses or some sort of thing, just ended up taking out telephone poles for like 3/4 of a mile. It's like, of course, he lives right on Route 31. It's a pretty busy road, especially rush hour. And it's right off of I-81. And he calls back a few days later and goes, you're not going to believe this, but they replaced all of those telephone poles and that noise is gone. And it's like, finally, you've only been crabbing at him for like 5 years. That's the other side effect of having an antenna low to the ground like that on one end. I did talk to Timmy back when I first got on, and he's like, look, you need to have your antenna up as high as you can possibly get it. Higher is better if you want to work distance. I didn't really care about working distance myself. I'm more or less content with what I've got, because I want to talk to people that I'm going to see at like Nearfest and at like Sussex and at like some of the Hamfests and stuff. I don't necessarily care about talking to a guy in China that I'm never going to see, but each of us in the hobby has, our own different kind of philosophy on it. Jamie wants to talk to somebody as far away as he can possibly talk to him and doesn't worry if he's ever going to see them at a Hamfest. Where, I want to kind of work people in the Northeast that I'm going to end up running into at a Hamfest and, get to hang out with and go to the AM dinner or whatever, that sort of thing. So this all ends up working for me. So I think electrical length is the big thing. So I see where this guy having his antenna zigzagging around in his yard, that he could get a very good match with it and, put some RF into the region. Maybe the guy wasn't going to be talking to like, Minnesota or something like that. And I think no matter what antenna you put up, it's kind of hard to make it across the Rockies to California, from what I've understood listening to a lot of the different guys. I would say if you've got some time and you got a spool of wire, just, go nuts some weekend and put some stuff up. Just if you end up center feeding it, the whole idea being that, each end has to be the same length. You don't want to have one end be, really long and the other end be really short. I think that's where you're going to run into trouble. But I might be wrong about that too. Again, good questions for Jamie and or Tim. K1GMM, K2XAM.
Well, I know K1GMM. I know if you if you're running open wire and you have an imbalance in the legs, that usually doesn't end well. You'll get some pushback and stuff. A lot of stuff will come roaring back at you. I can't have that in the shack. So, equal lateral lengths. Equal lengths, if you're running dipole type antenna with, 450, 300, 600 ohm, I would think that would be kind of important. If you're coming direct in to the tuner, that's why I don't run 450, because I don't have the confidence to do it right. And I have very sensitive stuff in this shack, and I can't have any RF in here. I know guys that have taken out computers and stuff. I know a guy across the pond that's blown up 2 computers with RF getting into the USB cables and getting into the USB board, and literally grenading his computer. It's happened twice. So that's one thing I'm really paranoid about. OCFs are great. I talk to a lot of guys on OCFs. I actually have one up here. It's only about 8 feet off the ground, and I use it for a diversity antenna. And you are correct. That thing, because it's so close to the ground, it's out on the south end of the house. It's a noise bucket, but I use it for diversity noise canceling on the Anon, and works well for that. And it's hot on receive. It's well matched, well tuned across multiple bands. And it picks up a lot of racket though, trying to figure out how to do a loop. A loop, that's a pretty big antenna. That's 520 feet, something like that, roughly, right? On 160. That's what, 125 per side, more than that. A little over 120 per side. But I've done horizontal loops before on 80 meters, and it regardless of what people say, it doesn't matter. I've run them in rectangular fashion, rectangular loop, and they work really well, and they're very quiet, which is nice. I don't know. It's not very big, Kevin. I don't have a lot of, I don't even know if it's 100 feet up back from tree to tree going across the property. I have 2 antennas up back there. So am I going to get some coupling? Is it going to detune anything? Probably not on 160 if I just keep everything monoband. You know what I mean? I think they can be in close proximity to each other. And yeah, you may get a little weirdness happening, but it'll probably work, So yeah, I know. Get some wire and go nuts. That's what you got to do. And just see. And I can't stop thinking about that guy that told me that, how he had his antenna running. See, I'm not afraid of noise, dude. I can get rid of the noise. I've got systems here that will smoke that. I don't even need a beverage antenna. And I don't care about working distance on 160. I would like something just, 100 to 200 mile radius, maybe 300 miles. Just a little bit of teeth so people get a good copy, I can deal with the noise. That's not a problem. So, yeah. I mean, I played a lot with receive antennas too, so you can have an antenna that's 10, 15, 20 dB down on receive compared to transmit. And it actually works out better, especially in a high QRN environment, because your signal to noise ratio, you'll still get audio coming through, but the noise floor will drop to such an extent that you actually hear better. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. It's a band that has eluded me since day one, and it's a difficult band if you don't have a lot of property. K2XAM.
So, in a sense, I was going to mention this yesterday. The whole reason that I ended up wanting to get on 160 is back when I was a kid in high school. I had this friend, Jack, who was an old buzzard guy. He was an old guy. He was probably, when I first met him, he was probably in his 60s, probably even a few years older than I am at this point. And he was retired. He might have even been closer to 70. I was interested in radio and broadcast, and I did end up having, I guess I still to a certain extent, still have a broadcast career, maybe from a distance, but, still involved with it to a certain extent. But I wanted to be in radio, and I did get in radio, and, I wanted to I wanted to be a disc jockey and do some engineering, and it turned out I did some engineering more so than being a disc jockey. I was much better at the engineering side of things. And, but, we talked about AM and 160 and stuff like that, but my limiting factor was I never could learn the code. I just could never catch on to it. Jamie says, I could teach you the code. And I'm like, I don't know, man, between me and my first ex-wife, we were trying to even learn the code back in the early 90s and stuff, because we both really wanted to get our ham license and stuff like that. And it just, I just could never catch on. I mean, we bought tapes and more tapes, and even when I was in high school, our high school shop teacher was teaching us code during electronics class, but it got to the point where you knew what message he was going to send. You'd hear the first couple of letters, and it's like, it's going to be this message. And so, that wasn't really a good way to end up learning code and so forth. But my friend Jack, he was a retired broadcast engineer back when the engineer had to hang out at the transmitter building. He was one of those guys that stayed out at the transmitter building, and you had to take readings every hour, and you constantly watched your meters and probably read a newspaper or something. It's just the way things were back in the 40s and 50s and stuff. And so he really got me interested in 160, and I always wanted to get on 160, but never did. And would be daydreaming, looking at the 1964 ARRL handbook with all the modulator circuits that were in there and the tubes, and talking about punching chassis and all of that stuff. I thought was really cool. And here it was till about 5 years ago. I finally ended up getting on even 80 meters. Finally, and so I'm kind of a newbie to this side of things, and antennas are interesting. There's a lot of formulas out there, and I don't know. I think you just grab some wire and end up going. I was told the guy that Ted was taking care of WTWW, him and his two boys and his wife at the time were taking care of that shortwave station. And he's the one, he said to me, I had called him up and I said, I really want to get on, and what do I need? What do I do? And he says, go buy a Johnson matchbox. And he goes, if you can find one, buy a kilowatt matchbox. And it's like, so I did find one on eBay and paid too much for it, but it's what he told me to get. So I got it. And he said, go get some 450 ohm, ladder line, window line. So I got a whole spool of that from DX Engineering, and he goes, just put your wire up and, make sure it's cut to length. So you don't want one end longer than the other and all of that. And so, and then I had a conversation with Tim, and Tim's like, well, some of that's right, but just get as much wire in the air as you possibly can, and so forth. And so, I ended up getting on, but it wasn't until like a year later that I even ended up getting on 160, maybe 2 years later. And Jamie and I put the antenna up for that. My first antenna, believe it or not, it's still up. It's only about maybe 15 feet off the ground. And when I put that up, I thought if I talked to somebody in Utica on 80 meters, I'd be doing something. And Utica's an hour in your car drive from here. So I figured if I talked to somebody in Utica, that'd be pretty cool. No, my first contact is Glennie up in Maine, up in Bodenham, Maine. And, it's like, you got to be kidding me. This wire that's only 15 feet off the ground, that was basically cut electrical length to 3885 because I didn't know any better. and was using the antenna tuner. I'm on, and I'm using like 80 watts at that point onto this Viking 2 that I got. And it's just like, I'm talking to a guy in Maine on this little piece of wire that I put up. And it's just like, wow, so that completely blew me away. And then I think my maybe, third or fourth contact was Clark, N1 BCG. It's just like, wait, where are you, down in Connecticut? What? And here I am thinking I'm going to talk to somebody in Utica. It's just like, wow. So it's just, I don't know. Antennas still end up are somewhat mind-boggling to me. K1GMM, K2XAM.
Hey, quick question. I can't remember if you told me this. Are you a musician by any chance?
Not at all. I can't play a note to save my life. Although I always wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a drummer. And I took drum in 5th grade. And by the end of the year, the guy that's the teacher, he says, "You just plain suck. Don't worry about doing this." So the ongoing joke beyond that was, that I took German in junior high and high school, and my high school German teacher said, "You're really good at playing the tape recorder."
The reason why I ask, and this is going back to what you're talking about with code, learning code, stuff like that. I tried it, Kevin. Okay, there's two things. First of all, I've always believed, this is for myself, that I could do anything that I wanted if I put my mind to it, and I really knuckled up and really focused and tried to accomplish it. There's two things I can't do that I've accepted in life. One is play golf, and the other is do code. I tried. I had a guy that can cruise along at 20, 25 words per minute with a key made out of 2 pieces of copper strapped to his thigh, going down the road and do code while he's driving around town, whatever, at 20 to 25 words per minute, using his index finger and his middle finger, back and forth on a little key that he made. He's got a strap, and it straps to his thigh, right on his leg, right? I mean, the guy's hilarious. And he tried to teach me. I'm a musician. I've been a musician since I was a child. He's like, "Oh man, dude." He said, "If you're a musician, you got it made. You got it made because you're already halfway there." I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter. With me, I can't do it, Kevin. I tried all these different methods of doing it. I don't know if it's some kind of cognitive malfunction, or I could start the transmit process, but to copy, it's a very different thing. It's a two-way street. Yeah, you can't transmit if you can't. I mean, what's the point of transmitting if you can't copy someone coming back to you, right? I know that's extremely fundamental way to look at it, but yeah, dude, I was so demoralized. I just gave up. He said, "Come on." He says, "Keep going." He said, "I'll work with you." And I said, "Dude, I can't do it. I can't do it. Just know I get to a certain level, and it wasn't very much, very far, and just hit the wall and never got any better. And my brain would just shut down." So I don't know what that is. There's two things, that I just chalk up that I will never be able to do. Could I do it if somebody put a gun to my head? Probably not. Go ahead, K1GMM.
Yeah, I'm not even worried about it at this point, I'll tell you. So, I actually, it was kind of funny back in about whenever they abolished the whole idea of having to have code. I'm like, I'm going to go get my ham license now. And I call this guy in Schoharie that I knew. The guy had actually given me my test. I think 2 of my tests for when I ended up being involved with the Society of Broadcast Engineers. He ended up giving me a couple of tests to get certified to do radio engineering. And so I knew he was big into ham radio and so forth. Jamie knows him. I can't remember the guy's name right now. Real nice guy. And I call him up and I go, hey, I want to get my ham license. I'm my no-code tech. And he goes, okay, I'm starting a class in another month at this high school in Schoharie. Well, Schoharie was about an hour drive from me. I was living in Ballston Spa at that point. And, you know, he goes, you can come to the class under one condition. And I go, okay, what's that? And he goes, that you never, ever answer a question until I call on you, because this stuff is so stupid simple that you're going to know all of the answers without even having picked up the book, because you do it every day while you're out fixing radio transmitters and, you know, the rest of it. And I'm like, okay, no problem. So, you know, there's about probably 15 or 20 of us that show up to take this class, and he lets all of them give their answers. You know, not all of them, but he'd call on 5 or 6 different people, and then he'd always call on me last and go, you know, all right, what is the answer to this question? And, you know, I would get him right like 99% of the time, because I was basically, you know, living it. And so the class was pretty easy for me. And I ended up going and taking the no-code test. This is like in 99 or 2000. But I never did anything with it. And I even had my friend John up in Maine gave me a 2-meter antenna, and I don't even know what the radio was. You know, he goes, here, you rig this up into your car, and you'll be all right, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. Well, I never did. The thing sat in my closet apartment for like a year, and we're going back up to Maine. I think me and my son were to go see some friends, kind of our vacation. And I gave him the radio back, but I kept the antenna, because by that time I was doing a lot of weather service stuff. And I'm like, hey, this antenna will work great as a receive antenna for NOAA. And I told him, I said, I'm sorry, I'm hanging on to the antenna. He goes, yeah, it's no problem. He goes, you don't even have to give the radio back to me. I'm like, no, this stuff's been sitting in my closet for a year, and we moved at least once. I don't want to move it again, and I'm probably not getting on. And then, I don't know, probably about 15 years ago, I had picked up a bunch of stuff off of eBay, an ICO 720 and 730 modulator, which I had that stuff when I was a kid, and had a pirate transmitter in the AM broadcast band, upper end of the AM broadcast band, that I made that thing work. And so I kind of knew the ins and outs with a 720 and 730. So I got that stuff, rigged it all up here. And but I didn't know any better. I was calling CQ in the middle of the afternoon, like high noon, 1 o'clock, in the middle of July or August, and nobody got back to me. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. This was a waste of time. And I took all the stuff and put it back on eBay. And I had I had picked up on eBay a pristine mint Heathkit antenna tuner. I mean, the thing looked like it had just come out of somebody's factory, like somebody built it and never used it. And it worked. I mean, I could tune up, you know, the antenna that I had put up and everything. It was just, I didn't know any better. You know, if I had waited, you know, middle of summer till like, you know, 8 o'clock at night, it would have worked great. I just didn't know. Anyways, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but I have buzzed it on for 4.5 minutes. So go ahead and pick it back up, and I've got to get rolling out of here, and at least hit the shower by at least 8 o'clock. K2XAM, K2XAM.
You know, I gotta say that this is the reason why I love this mode, is because people talk as long as I can, but it's actually nice to kick back and listen, because there's so much. God, dude, you know, you threw everything, including the kitchen sink, in there. I'm just teasing, but that's standard issue in this mode. It allows me to kick back and listen. Listening is good. It really is. It's something that I do a lot of lately. Oftentimes when I get out here, I don't even transmit again. Sometimes, I shouldn't say often, sometimes I won't even transmit for the rest of the day. I'll be in and out of the shack, and I'll just go find stuff to listen to, and I'll listen for a minute, and I'll go, meh, no, I really got nothing. So it's okay. Anyways, I'm not going to go on and on about that. Yeah, it is Sunday. Yeah, we're coming up to 8 o'clock. I just looked over 10 minutes. Yeah, boy, there's a can of worms there. But man, that area, I mean, you're right over the mountain from me, where you were. That whole Glens Falls, you talk about Schenectady all the way up to Saratoga, Glens Falls. That whole region is literally right over the mountain. You head over I got the Equinox, which is just southwest of me by about 12 miles. And right over the other side is the New York border, and then you're right in there. So it's funny. You mention all these areas all the time, and yeah, unfortunately, there's no easy way to get there, as you know. You've tried to go west or east into Vermont, get up to Killington, places like that. I mean, if you're anywhere south of Route 4, which comes over from what? Whitehall? Is that it? Whitehall? And then through Fairhaven, I mean, there's really nothing until you get all the way down to Route 7 coming out of Troy, and then it changes to Route 9. Rest of it are very small secondaries to try and get in here. So even though it's close, it's a pain in the arse. I'll let you go. Yeah, interesting. And yeah, we can go on and on about this stuff. Holy crap. And the antenna stuff. I will say, just, remember I mentioned the reason why, probably the primary reason I got in the hobby was because I love antennas. I love antennas. I'm fascinated by how they work, all the different types of antennas. It took me 3 years, Kevin, every day for 3 years to develop an antenna system here that would work at my QTH. Accepting the fact that everything is moderately high angle because of where I live. If you look at my house on Google Earth on a map or a topographical map, it's amazing. You'll probably look at it and go, holy crap, it's amazing he gets out at all. It's bad. It's really bad, especially going west. West is like, I got a 4,000 foot chunk of marble, literally goes straight up off my back doorstep, and I'm right on the valley floor. Yeah, 3 years trying to come up with it. And I came up with them. I got them all set, had great success with them. And we had a big storm, when was it, a year ago? And destroyed. They were multiple element full wave loop arrays that were remote switchable. They fired either northeast or southwest for 20, 40, and 80 meters. 80 meters, different types of antennas, everything from reversible Moxons to reversible full wave loops, delta loops, phase dipoles, all different types of arrays. And yeah, I decided, okay, after the maintenance and seeing the damage and having to rebuild that stuff, I said, screw it, I'm going simple. So I just put up a 15 meter dipole at 90 feet because the ZS6 BKW sucks on 15. So I got a ZS6 BKW, covers 40, 20, 17, 12, 10, and 6. And that's at about 65 feet. And the 80 meter loop, which actually covers 80 meters and 30 meters. It's actually resonant on 30 as well. So I do some data modes, digital modes on 30 meters. I find 30 meters to be one of the most fascinating bands. You can set your watch to it. It's the coolest band if you're into that kind of thing. Anyways. And there is my timeout warning. Wow, that was a long over. I am sorry. I'm like that monkey with the clapping cymbals. 7-3, we'll catch you later. Sorry about that. That was a 5-minute over. Holy crap. I gotta get my timer on. K2XAM, have a great day, Kevin. Nice to hear you. And this actually went to YouTube. This is a good one to go to YouTube, so I'm going to leave it up there. K1GMM 7-3, have a great day.
Right. I used to work in Rutland, and I lived actually in gosh, I lived in Ballston Spa, a couple miles from my dad's house, who was in Burnt Hills. So we were pretty close to each other. This is back in the 90s when we ended up moving back from Maine. I ended up working in the Glens Falls market, taking care of some stations, and ended up very fortunately ended up with a station in Albany that was one of the news stations that came on the 80-90 docket drop-ins. So I did get to work in the Albany market on the air, actually. And there I was their kind of morning show sidekick news guy and engineer of the station. All on a part-time / contract basis, which was interesting. But then I ended up working up in Rutland, Vermont, which was from Ballston Spa, an hour and a half ride, and I would end up going up 2 or 3 days a week. I think at one point I was doing Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then going to Utica or Rome, which was also an hour and a half on like Tuesdays and Thursdays. But it wasn't that way forever. Stations came and stations went. And so forth. But I worked up in Rutland for about 7 years. Even throughout the time, I ended up owning the station in Cobleskill, which added an hour to that commute. It was 2.5 hours, and I had gone to the station miss manager when I owned the station in Cobleskill. I'm like, dude, I can't come up here 3 days a week. You got to let me come up here like 1 day a week or something, because I just can't do the drive. It was getting to me. And so he's like, fine, come up, one day a week, 2 if you're feeling it, that sort of thing. And so I did. But yeah, I would take, when I was living in Ballston Spa, I would take the Northway up to the Lake George exit, Route 149, and come over in Fort Ann and pick up Route 4. And then Route 4 towards Whitehall. And then, if you make it to Whitehall, within about probably 5 minutes, you're in Vermont, and over into Rutland. And so, that worked out well. It was just an hour and a half ride. And then there was a period of time that I actually lived in Hudson Falls, and that was actually nice. Hudson Falls wasn't nice, but it was nice from the standpoint of the commute. That made the commute to Rutland only 1 hour. And so, the station manager really liked that. He goes, oh, you can come back to coming here 3 days a week. All right, great. Because it was only an hour, only an hour ride at that point. And I think that ended up, I found some shortcuts to get to the thruway. And I think he put the Utica Rome market to about 2 hours, which was like, all right, a little further than I wanted, but I had a pretty good reputation in that market and so forth. And I don't know, but yeah, I got used to driving a lot of the roads and so forth, and found the easiest way to get to Cavendish at this point is actually to go through Rutland rather than going through Troy. You can get there both ways. And but man, what was it, Okemo or something? We basically go by the Okemo ski resort, and that's up high. And I don't know, that height, it does something to me. I just don't feel right after going up to those extreme heights. You talk about antennas and your antenna situation. So Jamie at our shop, we're in 9 Mile Valley, and I don't know, but Jamie, we're basically in a valley because there's 9 Mile Creek right behind the building. Jamie's surprised that we have any signal coming out of that valley at all, even on 80 meters. But we do have a signal out of that location, and there's mountains all around. We're kind of in the bottom of the soup bowl, so to speak, at the shop. And but it somehow works, and Jamie can't get his head wrapped around it of why it works or how it works, because he looks at all of it and goes, we shouldn't be able to get on anywhere. And he's done like 6 meters and 10 meters and actually showing up on reverse beacon networks all over the place, various locations around the world. But he's like, man, I can't believe we can get out from this location. Anyway, I go on here all day. I really gotta get rolling, and I have a studio timer here because I tend to ramble on too much. I'm up to 5.5 minutes, so I'll shut up and say 7-3, and we'll catch up with you during the week. Take care. K2XAM signing.
Yeah, I don't feel so bad now, Kevin. Anyways, bless you, brother. Nice way to start the day. And yeah, go get them and have a good one. Enjoyable all the way around. Turns a frown upside down. Is that how they say it? Something like that. We'll see you later. K1GMM.
7-3, K2XAM, gone.
All righty. We're out of here. That was kind of a cool QSO. I was kind of hoping there were a bunch of people in there, but oh well. We will catch you guys later. Have a great day.